Morning all. I'd like to ask a question this morning about Boris Gelfand. Is he possibly the strongest Sicilian Najdorf player of 2013? We all know that some of the Sicilian defence games of his match from Vichy Anand last year were a bit on the dull side, but that was when he was playing, trying to play the Sicilian Sveshnikov, and we saw the anti-Sveshnikov, the Rosalimu system being played by Vichy Anand. But he's been having fun this year and taking down many great players in the Sicilian Najdorf, including up-and-coming players that you might think are really potentially future World Championship material themselves, like Caruana. Now, there was a game yesterday in the Sicilian Najdorf against Hikaru Nakamura. Let's have a look at this game. So, Hikaru plays e4, Boris plays the Sicilian defence. After knight f3, d6, we enter, soon now, the Sicilian Najdorf, which is characterised by this move a6. And now, Hikaru plays bishop e3 here. He doesn't want to play, by the way, the move f3 immediately for bishop e3. I think on the move f3, an immediate e5 is quite okay for black. This is meant to be about equal. So we see bishop e3, and there is a temptation to play this knight g4 now to ask the bishop where it wants to go. It is played here, and Hikaru now on move 7 moves the bishop back to c1. The most usual move is actually to put it on g5, and we get actually a repeat of the same question now, because in this position black just puts the knight back on f6 rather cheekily. So we have this question: does white really want to play a kind of tame move, bishop e2 and castle kingside, potentially allowing a quick e5 from black? Well, he puts the bishop back on e3, and we get this question again. So the bishop, does it want to go back, or does it want to go to g5? It goes to g5 now, and here we see quite dynamic play from black, which is like established now. h6, just kicking the bishop again, bishop h4, and now g5. This facilitates a quick fianchetto of the f8 bishop. So bishop g7, bishop g7. Pardon me, bishop g3, bishop g7. So there's nice pressure along this diagonal, but black has weakened some light squares here. Are these going to be exploitable? h3 for the moment, and then the knight goes to e5 in this position. It looks quite nice on e5. f3 is played here, knight bc6. This is quite theoretical. Bishop f2, and now bishop e6, not minding the double pawns, but it's been seen before quite a bit, this move bishop e6. Queen d2, rook c8, not yet castling. Now white castles queenside. And now it's been seen before, the move queen a5, quite a few times here on my live book, 16 times for queen a5, and the much rarer bird is played instead, knight takes d4, which is just 3 games. So slight finesse here. On queen a5, for example, knight b3, queen goes back, king b1, b5, and we will get play on both sides of the board, very exciting, like h4, so play like this. But we see, quite different with black in this position taking on d4. So bishop takes d4, and now we see queen a5. And let's put it on the Kibitzer here. So queen a5, what is it actually threatening? Well, actually there is a concrete threat of bishop takes a2, and that's not so easy to kind of parry with rook b1. That would be possibly allowing rook takes c3 here, and this might be quite okay, at least okay for black, this position. Apparently it's about equal, this sort of position. But no, king b1's a bit of a tame move. Now we see a3 instead. Move a3. So now black dares to castle. In this position, which is quite rare, there's been apparently 3 games of rook g8. So castle's been seen once before in my live book, but it seems a bit dangerous to castle here. Nevertheless, it is played. So why does it look dangerous? Well, white can wrench this pawn with h4, gain leverage on this pawn to tear open the h file, surely. This is exactly what Nakamura plays, h4. So it looks at an exceptionally dangerous position here, because knight takes d4 also seems to have favoured white having this bishop pointing at this fianchetto bishop, automatically ready to take that off and weaken black's kingside further. Now a move which keeps the lines closed here is played, the move g4. As far as possible, it keeps the lines closed. Now, okay, what does white want to do here? Well, let's see. In the game, he actually played queen f2. Nakamura played queen f2. If he plays something like f4, it might not be particularly hot, because knight c4, bishop takes. And now the accurate move is bishop takes d4 here. Rook takes c4. Black should be fine here because he has the dragon-like sacrifice, the exchange sacrifice, quickly available to him, and that should ensure equality at least here. So let's go back in the game here. Queen e3 has been played before, but we see actually queen f2. And what is quite remarkable now in this position is that after rook c6, if you compare the pair of rooks for both sides, it's like white's rooks look actually far more passive and less ready for action against the opponent's king here than these two are against this king. It looks as though king safety is in black's favour. It seems white's king is looking more unsafe, just simply because the rooks are ready to double. And okay, it looks as though that might be quite solid at the moment with the bishop protecting c3. But is that really the case? Well, white in this position also seems to have space gaining with tempo, which looks quite lucrative, and he actually plays f4. But now a really, really powerful move is played in this position. And if it's not, I guess black's going to be a lot worse. I wonder if you can guess what black plays in this position if I give you 10 seconds starting from now. Okay, I mentioned this bishop's like protector of c3, keeping things solid, but Boris just plays rook fc8, a remarkable move, really. But what choices were they? If we look at knight c4, white is actually significantly better in this position after knight c4. Apparently with the move knight d5. Knight d5 threatens knight takes e7 check, which is quite nasty. And if bishop takes, you might ask, e takes attacks the rook, and this is troublesome now. For example, rook c5, that looks a bit desperate, but if we move the rook here, for example, bishop takes g7, and I think we're just losing a piece to queen d4 check. Bishop takes c4, that's pretty nasty. So knight c4, it's not on, it seems. It seems very, very loose on c4 because of this knight d5. Very, very powerful knight d5 here. So there aren't too many choices. So rook fc8 though really keeps the initiative going in black's favour, it seems, because now, okay, in the game we saw queen g3. Now if f takes, then the point is d takes, and what does actually white do here if his c3 is being undermined so much? If the bishop moves back, rook takes c3 is really quite powerful here indeed. For example, taking, check, check, and it's really quite crushing this position. It all fall through here. It's absolutely, white's crushed here. So that's why queen g3 is played in this position instead of f takes e. This is simply far, far too powerful if the bishop leaves the protection of c3 here. So queen g3 not allowing this pawn to attack the bishop, so trying to keep things solid. The knight just goes back now, and black is now threatening. Bishop takes, followed by rook takes c3 again though. This dragon type sacrifice, Sicilian dragon type thematic sacrifice, is being renewed here, the threat of it. So white now takes on g7. This might not be the best move, but it seems quite difficult for white already. If queen e3, for example, bishop takes d4, rook takes d4. Again, we have this dragon type thematic sacrifice. Seems so easy to play and so effective here. We get a pawn immediately. Where does the queen go if rook interferes? Black can simply play in this position, rook c6, and stand better. What are the threats? Well, knight c5 is a major threat here. It's just really, really dangerous. For example, let's go with f5, knight c5. Now, if the rook moves, bishop a2 here, and it's getting really dangerous for rook b6 now, or queen b6. White's king safety is very, very loose in this position. There are just too many difficult threats to parry. Say queen f4. Well, sorry, not queen f4. That leaves the rook hanging. Let's give white a move. Bishop c4. Knight a4 is now really dangerous in this position. So these threats are just too powerful. So in the game, actually, let's go back. So in the game, after knight d7, instead of queen e3, we see bishop takes g7, which looks promising because f5 to follow and maybe taking on g4. But is it harmful for black's king safety? King takes, and now f5. So white can forcibly win g4. But now we see rook takes c3 in this position, and it's still very dangerous for the white king. If white checks, it's pretty harmless here actually. Just king f8 is okay for black. It's more than okay. There's too many threats, like against c2. This is just too slow for white. So white plays b takes c3 here. And now, if rook takes c3, then white might be okay with queen takes g4 check and f takes e6. This might actually be just about okay with resourcefulness like rook h3, might be playable, but this wasn't played actually. Instead, we see a much more powerful move, just queen takes a3 check, so running with check, and now a really stunning move. I wonder if you can guess this one if I give you 10 seconds starting from now. Okay, not moving the bishop, but instead knight f6, protecting the pawn and threatening knight takes e4 check. The queen is a bit unfortunately placed on g3 in this position. This looks like bad news, very bad news. These rooks just seem not participating in the game, and the bishop hasn't yet moved from f1. It's only the queen running around here like crazy. So queen d3, and actually there is a technically strong move in this position which the engines pick up after queen d3, which might be quite good for black. Knight takes e4 might actually be quite a good move. For example, check like this, rook c4. It's just very, very dangerous for white's king. Even like this position is very dangerous for white's king safety. If the king's getting chased like this, it's very, very troublesome. But no, instead, for the moment, we just see bishop c4, which is again a very, very powerful move though, bishop c4. Where is the queen going here? Black is trying to undermine e4, trying to get the queen away from e4. So we see queen d4, and now another really exceptionally powerful move. in this position. There are ways for black to go wrong here, but can you guess what black played? If I give you 10 seconds here. Okay, Boris plays d5. Now this is really bad for white. If, you know, for example, if bishop takes c4, rook takes c4, you know, it's crashing through on e4. E4 is surely dropping. Well, the knight's pinned for a moment. In fact, here even d4 is strong, as well as rook takes e4. This is strong, but also even in this position d4 remarkably, because if takes queen b2, threatening rook takes c2 and rook d4, for example like this, rook takes d4, this is very nasty. This queen's actually a liability, tactical liability to checks later to win the queen. So in this position, let's go back to d5. It's very uncomfortable here. White tries e takes d5. I mean, he really doesn't, of course, want the knight coming in with e5, knight e4 check. That looks horrendous. So now the horrible knight there. In this position, either knight takes c3 or queen b2, and this is incredibly dangerous here. Black threatening queen takes c2. There's just too much pressure. So after this d5, we see e takes d5, and now the right follow-up is bishop takes d5, just tying white's bishop down here and the exchange down, but much better structure. White's structure is a wreck, and if white tries to move the bishop in this position, he played actually rook g1, which seems timid, but if he does sacrifice g2 for the sake of connecting rooks, this isn't that pleasant. Bishop takes g2, and in theory, okay, it's on the g file, but just bishop f3 and black's solid enough. For example, like this, black is doing very well and could even exchange off queens here, and black would still be much better, following up with knight d5, knight f4. It just looks very pleasant, this position for black, even in this endgame scenario. So okay, so white doesn't really want to lose the g2 pawn. So after this bishop d5, he plays actually the meek rook g1, and then we see bishop e4, just trying to collect this pawn. Now this pawn is protected again with bishop d3, and then we see queen a5. So if bishop takes e4, then rook d8 skewers the queen to the king. Queen b4, Naka doesn't mind now an exchange of queens here particularly. This is avoided though with queen c7, and the king's still a target here for queen f4 check. So bishop takes e4. Queen f4 check is powerful in this position, but also another powerful move is to try and get the queen away from e4 with a5. Queen takes b7. White's play just looks very much on the artificial side, with the queen doing most of the action for white in this game, remarkably. That can't be a good thing if the remaining black pieces can work together. Check, king e2. And in this position, it might be tempting to play knight takes e4 and drop the rook, but unless there's a mate, this might be okay for white. In fact, after queen takes c8, it's not clear, according to engines, that this is at all winning for black, this position. So no need to do that. We have the delicate rook c7. Okay, what are white's options here? Can he counterattack white's queen? Well, if he plays something like rook f1, what would happen? Just queen e5. And then we're going to take on e4. For example, queen b6, knight takes e4 is very unpleasant. So in the game, white just played queen b6. Now knight takes e4 is played here. with numerous threats like on c3, white plays queen d4 check, king h7. Okay, so now there are two major threats, rook takes c3 and knight takes c3 check. So c4 is played, trying to shield the c3 pawn. But now an absolutely fantastic crushing move, which the engines really like as well, is played in this position. Absolutely crushing. I think this will be a subject of puzzle positions in the future. So what would you play here with black? The most incisive crushing move. If I give you 10 seconds starting from now. Okay, the move rook d7 is played. And the point here is that if queen takes d7, check, king d3, knight c5 check. This knight's really versatile, stretching like this. These forks are really vicious, and this is very, very unpleasant, just losing the queen like that. So that can't be played. After rook d7, very difficult choice has to be made. Queen e3 is played. If we look at rook f1 again here, just trying to attack white's queen, actually then knight g3 check, by the way. King e1, queen takes f1 check. That's curtains. So, okay, so the queen goes to e3. And now we get knight g3 check in any case. And it looks as though, well, can white get at least a rook and knight for the queen? So queen takes g3, grabbing a knight, then a rook. But unfortunately, in this position, there's a killer check. Queen e5 check. And this is where I visited the game yesterday on ChessGames.com, and I realised white's had it here. He's not going to get a chance to play with both rooks. White actually resigned in this position, and the reason he's not going to get a chance to work with both rooks, if we look at, say, king d1, then queen a1 check wins the rook on g1. If king d3, queen takes f5 check wins the rook on d7. If king d2, queen takes f5, attacking the rook on d7. And if this moves, we have queen f2 check. Pardon me, queen f2 check, winning the rook on g1. So, in all lines, white is busted, it seems, after this check. What a game. What a vicious game from black. And actually, on the performance of the Sicilian Najdorf games this year, I would personally vote Boris Gelfand the strongest, most fierce Sicilian Najdorf player of 2013. What would you think about this? Do you think Boris has shown to be the best Sicilian Najdorf player this year? Comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.